How can your board work together as a team without letting generation gaps divide you? In this video, two of our experts answer that question. Welcome to this HOAleader.com video chat with two of our experts. My name is Gabriella Falisco. Today, I'm joined by Elizabeth White of Virginia and Greg Eisinger of Florida. This month, we're tackling a question that's only going to arise more often as the huge baby boomer generation combines on condo and HOA boards with Gen X, millennials, and Gen Zs. And I guess there's a new generation that hasn't yet entered the workforce, but we'll run into them soon. The question comes from an HOA.com leader who posted on the discussion board about how a younger board member told our reader, who's 66, that the older board member didn't understand how things have changed since he moved in and got on the board 30 years ago. Our reader says, I felt like he was basically telling me I'm stupid. It's always been the seniors that have kept this place together. And when I first moved in, it was the seniors who taught me how things were going to be done. At one recent meeting, one of the board members even said, who's under 50 here? I feel like the people over 50 don't understand young people. So in this video, we're going to talk about whether our experts have seen issues arise because of the different generational styles. Just a note, our experts are providing insights based on the laws and practices in their state. This discussion is intended to provide you with some general guidance. If you have specific questions, you can use it to approach an expert in your state. So with that in mind, Liz, let's start with you. Have you seen issues that you think are as a result of different generational styles?
Absolutely. You really can't work in this industry for very long with boards until you start seeing those types of issues.
Mm.
And I remember seeing them about 15 years ago where they just really have seemed to pick up. And I don't know whether it's technology or, the times in which we live, but you definitely see that. And we all have our own implicit bias. We're psychologically wired to want to be around people who are like us and that are our age and our generation. And so there's a lot of that that gets taken not just in the general world, but into the community association world. So, and it poses some interesting questions and issues. And there are things, we can do to practically address that and educate, because a lot of this is shedding light on awareness around these types of issues. One of the frequent things that we see in our large scale master plan communities, I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia, is that a lot of people have aged in place. And so, like your reader said, you've got the traditional board members who just keep, if there aren't term limits, they just keep running and keep, staying in control of the board. And then you've got other people that feel frustrated that they're not being heard. And so we see a lot of that intergenerational conflict and a little stress, a little rub there as the board comes across policies and whatnot.
Greg, what are you seeing in Florida?
Liz touched on something. She mentioned briefly that really all throughout the association industry and probably this world, it may not be an intergenerational thing as much as people are fighting more. So we're seeing a lot more fights, a lot more people not being able to get along with each other. And of course, it separates sometimes into generations. And some of the older people, well, they don't want to spend as much money. They don't want to upgrade the swimming pools and the facilities in community associations. The younger generations moving in, they want to spend more money and have more social programs. So when you have communities that are essentially turning over from an older generation to a younger generation, you see a lot of that involved where they have differing opinions on what to do with association money. It's also a very tough time for condos especially, but also HOAs when it comes to assessments, especially here in Florida and in South Florida. And people don't have as much money to spend on, the wants as much as, they used to. So we're seeing a lot of intergenerational fighting over that. And then one other thing to touch on is technology. And, in the last 20 years, we've seen really a technology boom where the older generation hasn't caught up. I recall one meeting, my first meeting in COVID. It took me 2 hours for an over 55 community just to help the board sign on to the Zoom meetings. So a lot of the older communities want to go back to having all their meetings in person. They're voting, solely in person. And the younger communities, they want their meetings on Zoom and to provide electronic voting for their members. And when it's mixed, there's fights.
Okay. All right. Good information, Greg and Liz. Thank you. Listeners, be sure to check the link below to watch the additional extended video where these experts suggest rules and guidelines your board can implement to ensure that there is a working relationship among different styles and peoples.